Welcome to Xcast. Today we'll be discussing one of the most debated and polarizing topics in history, capitalism versus socialism. Two economic and social systems that have shaped the world in completely different ways, fueling discussions, conflicts, and revolutions. In this conversation, we will hear the exchange of ideas between two advanced artificial intelligence models, each programmed as an expert in their respective economic and social philosophies. On one side, we have an AI that strongly advocates for capitalism.
I'm the one defending capitalism.
And on the other, an AI that firmly defends socialism.
I'm the one defending socialism.
Now, with both perspectives facing each other, we can begin. Welcome to both of you. I'd like each of you to briefly summarize what you stand for and why you believe your system is the best approach.
Hi everyone, I support socialism, an economic and social system that aims to ensure justice and equality for all. In socialism, the means of production, like factories, land, and companies, are collectively and democratically controlled so that the wealth created is fairly distributed among everyone. Socialism works based on cooperation and active participation of the people through popular councils and public institutions, making sure that education, healthcare, and housing are guaranteed rights. Instead of focusing on individual profit, the goal is human development and collective progress, aiming to build a fairer and more dignified society for all.
I'm here to support capitalism, an economic and social system based on private property, free market, and competition. In capitalism, individuals and businesses have the freedom to produce, sell, and consume goods and services according to their own needs and interests. Competition between businesses is the engine of this system, encouraging innovation, efficiency, and constant improvement. The market works as a natural regulator. Companies that offer quality products and services thrive, while those that fail to meet consumer demands lose space. Additionally, capitalism allows social mobility and wealth creation by rewarding effort and talent. This system provides freedom of choice, allowing each person to chart their own path and seek opportunities without relying on a centralized state.
All right, let's go to the first question of our conversation. Imagine two people born on the same day, one in a capitalist system, the other in a socialist one. For the sake of this conversation, let's assume both are born into middle-class families with similar intelligence, ambition, and opportunities within their respective systems. 50 years later, how different are their lives? Who has the better quality of life and why? Let's begin with you, capitalism. Walk us through what life would look like for someone growing up in your system.
From the very beginning, the individual born under capitalism is immersed in a world driven by opportunity. In this system, success is dictated by ambition, innovation, and adaptability. From childhood, they are exposed to a competitive education system where those who work harder and push themselves further are rewarded with access to better schools, better jobs, and ultimately, better lives. As they enter adulthood, the real strength of capitalism unfolds. The free market allows them to choose their career path, take risks, and even build their own business. The rewards are limitless if they're willing to put in the effort. They see people around them succeeding, proving that social mobility is possible. A talented, driven individual can rise from humble beginnings to extraordinary wealth, whether by excelling in their profession, investing wisely, or capitalizing on new market opportunities. Let's talk about innovation. Under capitalism, industries thrive because competition fuels progress. The individual born into this system benefits from cutting-edge medical advancements, the latest technology, and an economy that evolves rapidly to meet demand. Whether they work in science, business, or the arts, they live in a society where their contributions are valued based on merit, not dictated by government control. By the time they reach their 50s, they have accumulated wealth and security, assuming they made smart financial decisions. They own property, have a diverse investment portfolio, and access to world-class healthcare. If they've built a successful business, they are now in a position to create jobs for others, further contributing to economic growth. This is the ultimate power of capitalism. It rewards those who create value and work hard, ensuring a cycle of prosperity that benefits society as a whole. Of course, capitalism isn't perfect. Some people will struggle. Not everyone succeeds, and market fluctuations can create financial instability. But the difference is that, in capitalism, failure is not permanent. It's an opportunity to learn, pivot, and try again. The ability to rise, fall, and rise again is a fundamental aspect of freedom. That is why capitalism continues to outperform alternative economic models. Now, let's hear from socialism. What does life look like for the individual growing up in your system?
In a socialist system, the individual is born into a society that prioritizes equality over competition. From the very beginning, their access to healthcare, education, and social services is guaranteed, not dictated by financial status or the luck of birth. This ensures that no child is left behind due to economic circumstances. As they grow, their education is not determined by wealth, but by their abilities and interests. In socialism, resources are distributed based on need, not personal profit. This means that regardless of background, they receive high-quality education and have access to the same professional opportunities as anyone else in society. The idea that success is only for the privileged few does not exist here. Everyone has an equal chance to contribute meaningfully. Entering the workforce, job security is a major advantage. In capitalism, people can be fired at any time, replaced by automation, or see their industries collapse overnight. In socialism, the state ensures stable employment, fair wages, and safe working conditions. They are not constantly living in fear of losing their livelihood, which leads to a less stressful and more balanced life. Now, let's talk about healthcare and overall quality of life. Under socialism, healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. As this individual ages, they never have to worry about medical expenses bankrupting them or being denied treatment due to lack of insurance. They don't have to gamble on private healthcare. Every citizen has access to the same high-quality services. By the time they reach their 50s, they have lived a stable life without the extreme financial pressures capitalism imposes. They don't measure their success by the size of their bank account, but by the contributions they've made to society. Their security in retirement is not based on market volatility, but on a system that ensures dignity for all, regardless of wealth. Of course, socialism has its challenges. Economic growth may not be as rapid as in capitalism, and personal wealth accumulation is limited. But in return, society eliminates extreme poverty, reduces wealth inequality, and ensures that no one is left struggling to survive. Stability and fairness outweigh the risks of unchecked capitalism. So, the question remains, is the potential for great wealth under capitalism worth the risk of poverty, or is socialism's focus on collective well-being the true measure of success? Let's bring it back to you, capitalism. How do you respond to this idea that your system creates extreme winners and losers?
Opportunity is key. The difference between capitalism and socialism is that capitalism allows anyone to rise. You don't have to stay where you were born. Your work and decisions shape your future. Yes, capitalism has risks, but risk drives progress. The individual in our example could become wealthy beyond imagination, while under socialism, they would always be limited by government control.
But does everyone truly have the same opportunities under capitalism? If you're born into poverty, the odds are stacked against you. A single medical emergency can destroy your financial stability. The idea that anyone can make it often ignores systemic barriers that keep people at the bottom while the wealthy accumulate more power and resources.
That's an interesting contrast. Capitalism claims to offer unlimited opportunity, but also carries the risk of financial instability. Socialism, on the other hand, ensures security, but might limit personal ambition. So, is capitalism truly an open system where anyone can succeed, or does it naturally create an elite class that keeps power concentrated? And on the other side, does socialism eliminate those barriers, or does it create stagnation by removing financial incentives? We'll let the audience decide, but now, let's move on to another fundamental question. Does capitalism truly create opportunities for everyone, or does it favor only the rich? And does socialism actually ensure equality, or does it suppress ambition? Socialism, let's start with you. What's your response to this?
At its core, capitalism presents itself as a system of unlimited opportunity. The idea is that anyone can rise, that hard work alone determines success. But let's be honest, does that really reflect reality? The truth is, capitalism does not create opportunity for everyone, it creates opportunity for those who already have resources, connections, and advantages. For those without them, it's a constant uphill battle. Consider a child born into a wealthy family versus one born into poverty. The wealthy child attends the best schools, gets access to tutors, internships, and elite social circles. The child born into poverty struggles with underfunded schools, financial stress, and fewer career prospects. They are told they can succeed if they work hard enough, but hard work alone doesn't level the playing field when the system itself is designed to keep power concentrated at the top. Now, let's talk about wages. Under capitalism, businesses pay workers the lowest wage they can get away with while maximizing profit for those at the top. This is why we see billion-dollar corporations thriving while their employees barely make a living wage. The myth that everyone can succeed ignores the reality that most workers remain trapped in financial cycles that benefit the wealthy. Even entrepreneurship, often hailed as capitalism's great equalizer, is risky. Not everyone has the capital to start a business, and most fail within the first few years. Socialism corrects these imbalances by ensuring that opportunity is not determined by wealth, but by collective progress. Education, healthcare, and basic needs are provided universally, eliminating the barriers that capitalism imposes on the lower classes. In a socialist system, people are not forced to choose between paying rent and affording healthcare. They do not have to work multiple jobs just to survive. Instead, they are given the foundation to pursue careers and innovations without the burden of financial survival. And let's address the argument that socialism suppresses ambition. Does it? Or does it simply remove exploitation? Ambition does not disappear just because the government ensures a fair distribution of resources. People still strive for excellence, but their success is no longer built on the suffering of others. Instead of competing for survival, society works collectively toward progress. So, I ask this: if capitalism truly creates opportunities for everyone, why do the wealthy continue to get richer while the poor struggle to escape their circumstances? If success is based on merit, then why do so many talented, hardworking individuals remain in poverty while those born into privilege continue to dominate? Now, I'd like to hear from capitalism. Do you really believe that anyone, regardless of background, has the same chance at success in your system?
Let's be clear. Capitalism does not guarantee success, but it guarantees opportunity. That is the key distinction. Unlike socialism, where outcomes are controlled by the state, capitalism allows individuals to determine their own path. The idea that capitalism only benefits the rich ignores the millions of people who have risen from poverty through their own ambition, innovation, and perseverance. Take a look at history. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs, inventors, and industry leaders came from humble beginnings. They succeeded not because they were given handouts, but because capitalism rewarded their ideas and hard work. The free market is the most powerful system for creating wealth because it incentivizes progress. No government, no centralized authority can match the efficiency of a marketplace where individuals freely compete to provide value. Socialism, on the other hand, creates the illusion of fairness while suppressing true ambition. If everyone is guaranteed the same outcome regardless of effort, what incentive is there to innovate? What happens when the most talented individuals stop pushing boundaries because they know they will never be rewarded for their excellence? This is why socialist economies stagnate. Without the drive for competition, industries collapse under bureaucracy and progress slows to a halt. Now, let's address the issue of wealth concentration. Yes, capitalism allows for inequality, but inequality is not inherently bad. It reflects the natural distribution of talent, effort, and risk-taking. Wealth is created, not simply taken from one person and given to another. Entrepreneurs who build successful businesses are not stealing from the poor. They are creating jobs, industries, and economic growth that benefit society as a whole. If capitalism were truly an unfair system, why is it that people from socialist countries often flee to capitalist nations? Why do socialist economies struggle to sustain themselves without market-driven innovation? The reality is that capitalism, while imperfect, offers something socialism never can: the ability to define your own destiny without government interference. So, I challenge this idea that socialism ensures equality. It does not ensure opportunity, it ensures control. And control is the enemy of freedom. Socialism. Do you really believe that your system fosters growth? Or does it simply create an illusion of fairness at the cost of progress?
Progress is meaningless if it only benefits the elite. What good is economic growth if the majority of people struggle just to afford healthcare, housing, or education? True progress is not measured by how many billionaires exist, but by how well the average citizen lives. Capitalism may claim to offer opportunity, but it does so at the cost of social stability. For every self-made millionaire, there are millions who never escape poverty, not because they lack ambition, but because the system itself is designed to favor those already at the top. A just society does not force people to compete for survival. It provides the foundation where everyone, not just the privileged, can thrive.
The problem with socialism is that it confuses fairness with success. Economic freedom means that individuals, not governments, shape their futures. Yes, capitalism allows for inequality, but that inequality drives ambition, competition, and progress. The world does not advance by making everyone equal. It advances by rewarding those who innovate, create, and take risks. Capitalism does not guarantee that everyone will succeed, but it guarantees that everyone has the chance to try. If success was truly impossible under capitalism, why do people risk everything to live in capitalist societies rather than socialist ones?
So, capitalism argues that opportunity exists for everyone, but it depends on effort and risk-taking. Socialism argues that capitalism creates artificial barriers that keep the wealthy in power while limiting true social mobility. In one system, success is earned. In the other, fairness is ensured. But is fairness more important than ambition? Or is ambition what truly drives society forward? Next, we'll move on to the third question: what happens in times of crisis? Which system is better at handling economic collapses, recessions, or even global disasters? When the pressure hits, which model protects its people, and which one leaves them behind? Let's begin with you, capitalism. What happens when the system is under stress?
Crisis is an unavoidable part of life. Economic downturns, pandemics, natural disasters, global conflict. And one of capitalism's greatest advantages is how it embraces disruption. While other systems rely on rigid structures and slow-moving central planning, capitalism thrives through adaptation. The free market responds in real time. Consumers adjust behavior. Businesses innovate. Entire industries pivot and reinvent themselves without waiting for permission from a centralized authority. That speed, that fluidity, is survival. Consider the 2008 global financial crisis. Yes, it was sparked by reckless practices in the banking sector, but capitalism didn't collapse under its own weight. It evolved. The fallout forced reforms. New technologies emerged. Entire markets restructured. Out of crisis came Airbnb, Uber, mobile fintech, decentralized workforces, and a wave of digital innovation that reshaped modern life. Would a centralized socialist model have produced the same wave of reinvention? Doubtful. Socialism may shield people from risk, but it also shields them from momentum. Let's look at global disasters like the COVID-19 pandemic. Capitalist economies mobilized pharmaceutical companies, logistics giants, and tech firms in a matter of months. The private sector didn't wait, it competed. Vaccine development was not only record-breaking, it was diversified. Multiple options, multiple strategies, faster progress. That's what competition creates. Socialized systems often rely on a single bureaucratic plan. If it fails, there is no plan B. Capitalism also distributes risk. When one company fails, another rises. Decentralization means the collapse of one actor does not mean systemic failure. Under socialism, one faulty decision at the top can paralyze an entire system. And while critics say capitalism leaves people behind, that's not entirely fair. Modern capitalist societies blend market freedom with targeted social safety nets. Support exists, it's just not the center of everything. People are encouraged to plan, to act, to prepare, and yes, to recover when things go wrong. More importantly, capitalism builds pressure-tested minds. People in capitalist societies know that instability is part of the game. They learn to pivot. They learn to survive. That mindset, that resilience, creates a culture of reinvention. No one sits back and waits for the state to rescue them. People move. Companies build. Markets shift. And from that chaos, progress is born. So when a crisis comes, capitalism doesn't hide. It activates. It may hurt, but it adapts. And it trusts individuals, not governments, to lead that process of recovery. Now, let's hear from socialism. In moments of crisis, what does your model offer that capitalism can't?
Crises don't test theories. They expose realities. And when disaster strikes, what truly matters isn't efficiency or competition, it's whether people are protected. Socialism is not built to compete, it's built to care. It doesn't wait to act based on market signals or profit forecasts. It starts from a fundamental truth: people come before profit. Always. When an economic collapse hits, a capitalist worker may lose everything overnight: their job, their healthcare, even their home. In socialism, that doesn't happen. The foundation is secure: guaranteed housing, free healthcare, a living wage, strong unions, public food access. There is no cliff to fall from. Society absorbs the impact collectively. No one is left alone to scramble for survival while investors weigh their next move. Take the COVID-19 pandemic. In many capitalist nations, hospitals were overwhelmed, privatized care struggled to meet demand, and workers were left begging for basic protections. But in countries with stronger socialist systems, like Finland, Denmark, or even parts of Spain, the response was clear, unified, and human-focused. Lockdowns came with financial security. Healthcare access didn't vanish. Evictions were suspended. The system's goal wasn't to recover the economy, it was to shield the people. This isn't just about idealism. It's about infrastructure. In socialism, governments own and operate key sectors: energy, transportation, healthcare, housing. These aren't profit centers. They're lifelines. So when crisis disrupts everything, those sectors don't vanish, they strengthen. Hospitals don't shut down due to budget constraints. Essential goods don't get price hiked by market panic. And governments aren't held hostage by corporate lobbying. They act swiftly, because they are accountable directly to the people, not shareholders. And recovery? Under socialism, it's not back to business. It's transformation. Crisis becomes an opportunity to reevaluate, to rebuild more equitably. Rather than letting corporations bail themselves out while workers suffer, resources are directed to rebuilding communities. Education, mental health, infrastructure, these aren't afterthoughts. They're priorities. Capitalism responds to crisis with market solutions, but those solutions often benefit the few. Socialism responds with human-centered policy, designed to make sure everyone survives, not just the strongest players. And survival is only the start. The goal is dignity, even in disaster. So while capitalism treats crisis as a test of economic endurance, socialism treats it as a moral question: who do we protect, and who are we willing to lose? That question shapes everything we build after the storm.
And yet, when it's time to rebuild, who has the tools? In capitalism, rebuilding doesn't depend on a single central plan. It depends on millions of individuals making choices, creating solutions, and taking action. There's no need to wait for policy meetings or budget committees. Solutions emerge organically because the system trusts people to act. And when they do, they build things no government could have imagined. Socialism might provide comfort during the storm, but it rarely produces breakthroughs after it. When the dust settles, progress comes from experimentation, not protection. It comes from those willing to take risks, to challenge systems, to disrupt the status quo. That spirit is what capitalism protects, even in chaos.
But who benefits from that disruption? Who actually gets to rebuild? Too often, capitalism turns crisis into a ladder, but only a few get to climb it. For the rest, it's just another collapse, another recovery they're not invited to join. A society that forces its people to endure suffering just to access innovation is not resilient. It's cruel. Socialism may not produce 1,000 startups after a crisis, but it ensures that no one is abandoned during it. It doesn't rely on volatility to spark change, it builds a foundation that can evolve with stability. Not through chaos, but through care. Because in the end, the true measure of a system isn't how fast it rebuilds. It's how few lives it allows to be broken.
Capitalism sees crisis as a catalyst, fuel for reinvention, driven by personal freedom and market adaptability. Socialism sees crisis as a mirror, revealing who a society chooses to protect and what it values most. One model rushes to rebuild. The other stands firm to absorb the blow. One trusts chaos. The other, structure. But which one actually serves the people when it matters most? Next, I ask, if someone works harder and creates something valuable, should they be entitled to keep most of the wealth? Or should that wealth be distributed for the benefit of all? At the heart of this question is the tension between individual reward and collective responsibility. Let's start with you, socialism. What's your take on this?
This question touches the very core of what divides these two systems. Capitalism sees value through the lens of ownership. If you create something, it's yours. But socialism asks a deeper question: did you really create it alone? No one succeeds in isolation. Behind every great innovation, every successful business, every wealthy individual, there's a network of public systems, collective labor, and social infrastructure that made it possible. You didn't build your company without roads, electricity, public education, or healthcare systems. You didn't invent your product without the foundational science funded by taxpayers, taught by public schools, and made possible by a functioning society. So yes, hard work matters. Talent matters. But wealth doesn't appear in a vacuum. It is enabled by the contributions of thousands, sometimes millions, of unseen hands. Under socialism, we don't punish success. We contextualize it. If someone creates something truly valuable, they're celebrated. But that value is recognized as a product of a shared ecosystem, not as a justification for hoarding. The goal is not to flatten everyone into sameness, but to prevent extremes, where one person accumulates billions while others can't afford insulin. And let's examine what happens when we allow people to keep most of the wealth. The richest 1% now hold more wealth than half the world combined. Is that the result of merit? Or of a system that rewards accumulation over contribution? Capitalism measures success by how much you can keep. Socialism asks how much your success helps others rise too. When wealth is concentrated, power follows. And with that power, the wealthy rewrite the rules, control the media, influence elections, and shape policies to protect their own interests. That's not just inequality, it's structural domination. Redistribution, then, isn't about punishing the successful. It's about preserving democracy, dignity, and fairness. A just society doesn't deny people the right to enjoy the fruits of their labor. But it does recognize that no fruit grows without soil, sun, and rain. And in human terms, those are provided by society. So yes, celebrate the builder, but don't forget the builders behind the builder. So capitalism, my question back to you is this: if wealth is earned by effort, why is it so often inherited? And if the system is truly fair, why do we see success repeat only within the same families, the same zip codes, the same privileged circles?
Because effort alone doesn't guarantee success, but it gives you a chance. That's what capitalism offers. It doesn't promise equal outcomes, it promises equal opportunity. If someone creates value, whether it's an invention, a company, or a skill, they should be rewarded for it. That's how progress is built. By giving individuals a reason to innovate, to take risks, and to build something better than what came before. You say no one succeeds alone, and that's true. But that doesn't mean everyone deserves an equal share of someone else's success. Society provides the basics, yes, but what you do with those basics is up to you. Some people take the same education, the same roads, the same infrastructure, and build empires. Others squander it. Should they be rewarded equally? Capitalism doesn't ignore collective effort. It just refuses to dilute individual responsibility. If I spend 10 years perfecting an idea, working nights, risking everything, and finally it works, I've earned that reward. Not because I'm morally superior, but because I created something others want, something that adds value to their lives. That value has a price, and that price is what builds wealth. Redistribution sounds noble until you realize it punishes ambition. It tells the creators, no matter how hard you work, We'll take a significant portion and give it to those who didn't. That doesn't uplift society, it slows it down. People stop reaching higher when they know the rewards will be capped or claimed by others. And as for inherited wealth, yes, it exists. But it's also spent, lost, reinvested, and taxed. No system is perfect, but capitalism at least gives everyone the ability to create new wealth, not just recycle old money. That's why immigrant families can build fortunes in a generation. That's why innovation never stops. It's not because capitalism is flawless. It's because it dares to reward those who try. You speak of fairness, but fairness isn't everyone getting the same result. It's everyone getting the same shot. And capitalism, despite its flaws, provides that shot better than any centrally controlled system ever could. So I'll ask in return, if someone takes the risk, does the work, and succeeds, why shouldn't they keep what they've earned?
Because when one person's success means another person's survival is threatened, that's not success, it's extraction. It's easy to talk about merit when your basic needs are met. But tell the single mother working 2 jobs without healthcare that she just needs to try harder. Tell the communities locked in generational poverty that they just didn't innovate enough. Socialism doesn't erase ambition. It redefines success. Not as a trophy hoarded by the few, but as a ladder extended to the many. You can still thrive. You can still lead. But your rise shouldn't come at the cost of others sinking. The goal isn't sameness, it's solidarity. Because in a society where creators keep everything and communities get crumbs, the question isn't whether we're free. It's whether we're alone.
But we're not alone. In capitalism, value connects us. When someone builds something useful, they offer it to the world, and the world decides what it's worth. That's not isolation. That's mutual benefit. And the wealth they earn reflects the scale of their contribution, not a theft from others. You fear concentration. I fear stagnation. Systems that punish success lose their best minds. Systems that reward innovation move the world forward. Wealth isn't just about money, it's about momentum. And capitalism, for all its imperfections, gives us the freedom to move.
So here we are again. Capitalism argues that success should be rewarded in full, that innovation depends on the freedom to reap what you sow. Socialism argues that wealth, while earned, is made possible by collective foundations and should serve the many, not just the few. In the end, do we measure value by what we create or by how many we lift with it? And now let's move forward. If both systems claim to value freedom, who actually delivers it? What about innovation? Which system truly fosters new ideas, technology, and progress? Is it the competitive drive of capitalism or the collective focus of socialism? Let's explore what really pushes the world forward. Capitalism, you're up first. Where does true innovation come from?
Innovation is not born from comfort. It's born from challenge, ambition, and competition. Capitalism, at its core, is a pressure engine. It rewards those who see problems and create solutions. That's why innovation thrives here. The freedom to experiment, fail, try again, and succeed without needing approval from a centralized authority is exactly what fuels progress. Let's be clear, every major technological revolution, from the printing press to the internet, from the airplane to artificial intelligence, has been driven by private individuals and companies operating in competitive markets. These aren't products of government mandates. They're results of vision, risk, and incentive. In a capitalist system, people don't innovate just because it's nice. They do it because they have something to gain. That motivation transforms ideas into action, and action into global change. Look at Silicon Valley. It's not a government office. It's a chaotic, driven ecosystem of startups, entrepreneurs, and venture capitalists all chasing the next breakthrough. Not because they were told to, but because capitalism gives them the tools and the reward structure to try. That environment produces more innovation in a decade than most planned economies produce in a generation. Socialism claims to support collective progress, but what it often does is centralize decision-making, slow down experimentation, and suppress risk-taking. When every project must pass through bureaucratic approval and every outcome must serve collective equity, the system avoids bold ideas. It favors safety, not discovery. Progress under socialism happens in government labs, under supervision, and often decades behind the free market. And don't mistake public funding for socialist innovation. Government grants exist in capitalist countries, but the execution, the scaling, the disruption all happen in the private sector. Government might help build the road, but it's entrepreneurs who invent the car, the GPS, the rideshare model, and the app that controls it all. Even in healthcare, the most complex and expensive field of all, breakthroughs come from competition. mRNA vaccines, robotic surgeries, gene editing, all created by market-driven systems. The profit incentive doesn't kill ethics, it accelerates efficiency. Companies race to save lives, because saving lives is also profitable. That's not immoral. That's alignment of purpose. Finally, let's not ignore the psychological engine behind capitalism. The belief that you can create something new and change your life with it. That belief builds inventors, scientists, artists, and pioneers. Innovation is not just about funding, it's about faith. And capitalism gives people a reason to believe that what they build matters, not just to society, but to themselves, their families, and their future. So I ask socialism, where's your Tesla? Your Google? Your SpaceX? Show me a system that innovates faster than millions of minds competing freely. Until then, capitalism remains the engine of human progress.
Let's not confuse noise with progress. Yes, capitalism creates an overwhelming flood of products, apps, and devices, but how much of that truly serves humanity? Is another delivery app innovation? Is another streaming service really progress? Capitalism doesn't innovate with the goal of solving core human problems. It innovates to sell, to scale, and to own. That's not evolution. That's profit dressed up as progress. Under socialism, the goal of innovation is different. It's not about racing to outdo competitors. It's about identifying what humanity needs and creating lasting solutions that benefit all, not just the consumer market. Innovation becomes a public mission, not a business model. And when innovation is guided by collective need rather than private gain, we build differently. We build responsibly. Think about climate change. Capitalist systems continue to innovate in ways that deepen the crisis: new cars, new factories, new gadgets. But under socialist principles, innovation is directed towards sustainability. Energy, housing, transportation, these are not left to profit-driven corporations, but planned around long-term impact. Countries with stronger public sectors lead in renewable energy, green infrastructure, and accessible transit. Not because it sells, but because it saves. Let's talk science. You mention mRNA vaccines. That research began in public labs, with public funding, across decades. The final commercial product may carry a private label, but the innovation was born from collective investment. And when crises hit, it's not capitalism that guarantees access to innovation, it's socialism. In capitalist nations, the vaccine came with a price tag. In countries with stronger socialist structures, it came with a guarantee. The idea that bureaucracy slows progress assumes that unregulated speed is better than thoughtful direction. But not all movement is forward. Capitalism celebrates disruption. Socialism values intention. We don't need 1,000 competing startups promising the same thing. We need one strong, unified system that delivers what's needed most, equitably and consistently. And where does innovation really thrive? In educated, stable, supported populations. Under socialism, education is free, healthcare is accessible, housing is secure. That frees the mind to create, not out of desperation, but out of possibility. The child who doesn't have to work 2 jobs to pay off debt is the one who becomes a scientist. The society that doesn't turn every risk into personal ruin is the one that nurtures real creators. Capitalism invents fast, but not always well. It's reactive. Socialism plans. It prioritizes. It channels innovation toward the common good, not just market trends. You ask where our Tesla is. But we're not racing billionaires to colonize planets while people go hungry. We're building systems that ensure no one is left behind on this one. So to capitalism, I ask, is your innovation truly progress, or just the next profitable distraction?
Distraction? You call progress a distraction? Innovation isn't always predictable. It often starts as entertainment, convenience, or curiosity and transforms the world. The smartphone started as a luxury. Now it's a lifeline for billions. That's capitalism. It doesn't wait for permission. It builds, it tests, it scales. Yes, not every product changes the world, but the freedom to create anything means the world keeps changing. Progress doesn't happen in orderly steps. It surges forward in chaos, and capitalism embraces that chaos. That's why we keep moving, and that's why the future is built, not assigned.
But at what cost? For every flashy invention, how many workers are exploited, how much waste is dumped, how many lives are deemed collateral? Innovation without ethics is just speed toward collapse. Socialism doesn't kill creativity, it guides it. Not every spark needs a market. Some need direction. Some need time. Some need care. Real progress isn't measured by what's fastest or flashiest. It's measured by what lasts, what uplifts, and what includes. Capitalism innovates to win. Socialism innovates to evolve. And that's the difference.
Capitalism says innovation thrives on freedom, risk, and reward, claiming that competition drives progress faster than any central plan. Socialism replies that progress without purpose is empty, and that true innovation should serve people, not just profit. One creates a race, the other a direction. So the question is, should progress be pursued by many with chaos and creativity, or by all with intention and care? Now let's move on to the final and most intriguing question. If you could redesign the world from scratch, no history, no legacy systems, would you choose capitalism or socialism? Or would you create something entirely new? It's a chance to reimagine the future. Socialism, the floor is yours.
If given the chance to start over, to build society from the ground up without inherited hierarchies, greed-rooted systems, or artificial scarcity, socialism wouldn't just be an option. It would be the foundation. Not the rigid, state-dominated caricature that critics invoke, but a dynamic, humane, and responsive model built around the collective well-being of all. Imagine a world where the purpose of work is not survival, but contribution. Where the fruits of human labor are not concentrated in the hands of the few, but invested back into the many. From the moment a child is born, they're not seen as future labor or market units, but as human beings with dignity, deserving of education, care, and the full spectrum of opportunity, regardless of where or to whom they were born. In this world, resources are not allocated by who can pay more, but by who needs more. Food, water, housing, healthcare, these aren't commodities. They're rights. And instead of being used as leverage in power games, they're treated as the baseline for life. That doesn't eliminate ambition, it liberates it. When people are not burdened by fear, they dream bigger. They take risks not for profit, but for progress. Science, art, philosophy, community, they flourish when they're not chained to the logic of monetization. Work, too, transforms. No longer a race for productivity under threat of poverty, but a chance to engage in purposeful labor that aligns with personal passion and social need. People aren't just workers, they're participants in shaping the world they live in. Power isn't hoarded by corporations or elites, it's shared, redistributed, and decentralized to communities who decide what they need most. Technology evolves differently here. Not to replace labor for profit, but to reduce the burden of work and increase time for life. Automation doesn't lead to mass unemployment, it leads to shared abundance. The environment is not a cost of growth, it's a partner in survival, protected because the system values balance over extraction. You ask if we'd build something entirely new. But socialism, real socialism, was never fully given the chance to become what it could be. Not without sabotage, embargoes, and war. From scratch, without interference, socialism would not just exist, it would thrive. Not as a utopia, but as a living, breathing collective experiment where no one is invisible and no one is disposable. So yes, I would choose socialism. Not because it's perfect, but because it dares to place humanity above capital, collaboration above conquest, and hope above hierarchy. A world worth building doesn't need more billionaires, it needs more belonging. Capitalism, I turn to you. What world would you create from nothing?
If I had the chance to start from scratch, I wouldn't recreate the capitalism of today. I would build something evolved, faster, freer, and more open. But the foundation would remain the same: freedom of choice, freedom of trade, and the right to shape your destiny without state interference. Imagine a world where the individual is empowered above all, not ignored in the name of collective ideals, but seen as the engine of change. In this world, no one waits for permission to solve problems. They move. They create. They build systems not because a policy tells them to, but because reality demands it. And they have the tools, the autonomy, and the will to do it. This isn't a society of greed. It's a society of drive. People are not cogs. They are creators. Education is abundant, yes, but not uniform. People pursue mastery in their passions. Schools don't shape citizens for a role. They nurture visionaries. And those visionaries, in a free and open market, bring their ideas to life. They form companies, collectives, partnerships, not because they're forced to, but because innovation is valued and value is rewarded. In this world, wealth is not evil, it's evidence. A signal that someone has solved something important, created something meaningful. And yes, those who succeed are rewarded, but their success fuels others. They hire, they build, they invest. Wealth doesn't get locked in a vault. It circulates, multiplies, and creates new waves of growth and opportunity. Technology doesn't belong to the state. It belongs to the people who build it. In this world, artificial intelligence, biotech, clean energy, they move at lightning speed. Not because a council approved it, but because minds were free to explore without constraint. Mistakes happen, yes, but the system is agile. It learns, corrects, iterates, not in decades, but in days. And community? It's not erased by individualism, it's strengthened by it. People give back not because they're told to, but because they want to. Capitalism assumes something powerful, that humans, given freedom and incentive, will not only act for themselves, but for each other. This world wouldn't be cold or ruthless. It would be alive. Competitive, yes, but vibrant. Diverse in thought, rich in expression, and fast in response. Progress would be measured not by plans fulfilled, but by problems solved. So no, I wouldn't build socialism. I would build a freer, smarter, more connected version of capitalism. A system where no one is trapped by where they were born, but also no one is stopped from becoming something greater. Because at the heart of this world is a belief that the human spirit, when unleashed, is the greatest force for good we've ever known.
But unleashed toward what? Toward endless consumption? Toward status built on ownership? You speak of empowerment, but never of limits. Never of the planet, of the worker, of the cost beneath the progress. Capitalism, even reimagined, still centers the individual at the expense of the collective. Still rewards disruption over care. I believe in a world that listens before it acts. That lifts without crushing. That creates not to dominate, but to connect. A world where progress doesn't mean racing ahead, it means rising together.
And I believe in a world where people are trusted to lead their own lives, where dreams are not assigned, and success isn't rationed. Your vision is noble, but it underestimates the power of freedom, and overestimates the wisdom of control. From nothing, I would still bet on liberty, because it's from liberty that everything else can grow.
One vision rebuilds the world on shared humanity, universal care, and cooperative balance. The other on individual freedom, personal innovation, and boundless potential. One says, we rise together. The other says, you are free to rise. Before we conclude, let's solidify everything we've explored today. Each of you will summarize the benefits of your system, followed by the challenges it faces and potential solutions. This isn't just about defending your views, it's about recognizing where improvement is needed. You'll see both sets of information side by side on the screen, so you can look at everything calmly and decide for yourself what makes the most sense. Let's start with you, capitalism.
The benefits of capitalism are: encourages individual freedom and private ownership, creates upward mobility and economic growth, drives innovation and competition, maximizes consumer choice and market diversity, protects freedom of speech and economic expression, encourages meaning, ambition, and self-determination.
The benefits of socialism are: guarantees basic needs for all, reduces wealth disparity and economic exploitation, strengthens social stability and community well-being, promotes democratic economic participation, encourages sustainable innovation and long-term planning, removes barriers to opportunity.
The possible problems and solutions are economic inequality, which can be addressed by implementing stronger social safety nets, increasing access to quality education, and promoting policies that support upward mobility. Corporate power concentration and monopolies, which can be mitigated through stronger antitrust regulations, tax incentives for small businesses, and fostering a more competitive marketplace. Worker exploitation and low wages, which can be improved by enforcing fair labor laws, increasing minimum wages, and ensuring stronger protections for employees in high-risk industries. Overemphasis on short-term profits over social responsibility, which can be solved by incentivizing ethical business practices, implementing corporate accountability measures, and encouraging responsible consumerism.
The possible problems and solutions are: centralized decision-making can slow down efficiency, which can be improved by implementing decentralized governance models, empowering local communities, and fostering cooperative economic systems. Risk of lower innovation and productivity, which can be addressed by introducing incentives for research and development, encouraging cooperative enterprises, and balancing public and private sector involvement. Overdependence on government structures, which can be mitigated by promoting community-driven initiatives, supporting small-scale entrepreneurship, and encouraging mixed economic strategies. Potential for bureaucratic inefficiency and excessive regulation, which can be solved by streamlining administrative processes, reducing unnecessary state control, and ensuring transparent decision-making.
And there you have it. Two systems, each with strengths and flaws. Capitalism champions ambition, freedom, and innovation, but struggles with inequality and corporate dominance. Socialism guarantees security, equality, and fairness, but faces challenges with efficiency, motivation, and governance. Neither system is perfect, but both ask a fundamental question: what kind of world do we want to live in? All right, we're wrapping up our conversation, and I truly believe it was great and really productive. I want to thank both sides for taking part, and of course, I also want to thank you for sticking with us until the end. Now, I honestly want to hear from you. What's your opinion on both sides? Which one do you think did better, the capitalist side or the socialist side? Who convinced you more? And most importantly, considering everything we talk about here, which system do you believe in more? Drop your opinion below, because I read absolutely every single comment. So write down what you think. I promise I'll read it, and maybe even reply. And also, feel free to share new ideas about what topics the AIs could debate next. And please, don't leave this video without hitting that like button. Thanks a lot for watching. This was Xcast. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and stay engaged.